So I told you we were going to get to this eventually, but I also knew that travel in the FAU world was going to be problematic. It was going to be a little bit of an issue. So here we are. We are making it possible, and we are here. We have arrived, and this is the Florida Atlantic Voice presented by Robes Law Group, ROBES. RobesLawGroup.com, personal injury lawyers in the community for you. ROBES, Robes Law Group. That's RobesLawGroup.com. And, well, we know that FAU football is still within striking range of a bowl game. We still know that Florida Atlantic still very much has a pulse. We know the opponent is going to be very difficult on Saturday when Florida Atlantic goes to New Orleans to take on Tulsa for the first time take on Tulane for the first time in New Orleans. But we don't know, is the quarterback going to be healthy? We don't know what the cumulative construction of the team is going to be. Is FAU going to be able to continue to force turnovers like they did against Tulsa? There's a lot of unknowns, but it's better late than never. FAU football. It is the Florida Atlantic Voice, and it is Robbie Lastella, who typically joins me every Sunday for the day after edition FAU football, but could not do that this past weekend because I went right from FAU football to calling an Inter-Miami playoff game in Fort Lauderdale, into taking a little bit of a nap, into flying to Richmond, Virginia to get in a rental car and drive 3 hours to Lynchburg, Virginia for FAU to play Liberty, then drive back to Richmond in the dark. And I'll get into my drive back from Lynchburg to Richmond in rural Virginia. But then only to have the FAA cancel my initial flight to get home, only to get home 7 hours later than I was going to yesterday. Alas, we are here talking FAU football. Robbie, I know that you have crisscrossed the country covering FAU as well. So none of what I describe you haven't experienced before.
I always go back to sleeping in the Clemson airport after that game. Not only was it a brutal game by any stretch, but that was the only time I've ever had, the little noise that comes over. Please do not watch anyone's bags. I had a man come up to me. It was 3 a.m. in the airport and try to have me watch his bags. And that was it was just such a weird travel experience. I had to go find the police officer at 3 a.m. in the Clemson airport. So FAU travels can always get interesting, but outside that Liberty game, at least it was overall a pretty successful weekend across the board for FAU.
Yeah, so FAU football, I think the best way to describe the Tulsa game is they took care of business. And I know at halftime when Zach Kitley talked to Frank Fort for his sideline report on the Florida Atlantic Sports Network, Zach Kitley he flat out said he was pissed. He did not like the fact that the offense couldn't take advantage of certain situations. Obviously, I think he was pretty pleased with the fact that FAU's defense had been able to turn Tulsa over twice, including the second longest. I don't know how much this has been covered, actually, Robbie. So go ahead and shut me off and shut me down if I'm reiterating something that has been reverberating throughout the FAU football circles. But that Demarius McGee 95-yard, it was initially it was 96, then it was 95-yard fumble return for the touchdown, the second longest fumble return for a touchdown in FAU football history. The first one was in 2001, September 8th, 2001, the first ever FAU victory in program history. So there was some interesting parallels. Obviously, you're celebrating 25th anniversary of FAU football. You've got the 2001 helmets on. You're playing a homecoming game. And so for Demarius McGee to put himself into history that hadn't been made since 25 years ago, not only was that a big play in the game, but that's kind of a cool footnote, right? A cool program footnote for that to happen like that.
Yep, Katrina mentioned it after the game, and I don't think I tweeted it out, but I don't think anyone really picked on it. I think that is pretty cool. She mentioned it to Demarius, and I think it kind of clicked that was pretty cool. But there were stats all around. I mean, Easton Messer Had the sixth touchdown game in school history. Caden Shields-Dutton had personal records as well, had his longest career run and first career 100-yard game. So it was an all-around really good game on both sides of the ball, and I think that was exactly what they needed out of the bye. The turnovers, though, that as Kitley said, took a tire weight off of his back. So that was big. Those were big stuff.
As far as the turnovers are concerned, I knew just by the way football karma works. Trey Lamb, Tulsa's head coach, had talked about during the week that he was sure it was driving Zach Kitley crazy, the turnover margin, and how FAU hadn't been able to force turnovers. And he didn't say it in a malicious way. He wasn't saying it to pile on FAU or Zach Kitley, but the fact that he brought it up, like deep in the recesses of my brain, I just had a feeling that FAU was going to break through and FAU was going to have the opportunity to potentially force turnovers and get some big plays done. And that's exactly what took place. It's weird how all of that works. But it was so nice to finally see the breakout. And FAU came into the game not even close the worst team in the country when it comes to turnover margin. And to finally see FAU come through in the first play of the game, third play from scrimmage, I should say, first possession of the game, Tulsa, and you get the Therese Reed interception, and then you start feeling like, oh, maybe this can snowball a little bit, maybe this can bring some momentum. But FAU then fumbles at the goal line, and that was frustrating. I think that was part of the angst of Zach Kitley at halftime, was really that specifically. But then you get the Demarius McGee scoop and score from 95 yards out. In my opinion, the 95-yard return for a touchdown, that's the game right there. Like that's it right there. And forget the possession right before halftime where Easton Messer picks up touchdown catch number 2 of the day. Like forget that. I thought that Demarius McGee fumble return that ended the game. That was it. No matter what happened later on in the half, Robbie, with the Easton Messer touchdown, the possession off of the turnover, the tip pass interception at the end of the half, the fumble return is where everything really felt like, to me, it ended in that spot. That was it. After that, Tulsa wasn't coming back after that.
No, and those were the type of plays that FAU has been missing pretty much all season long. The big plays on the offensive side of the ball, they've had them, but on the defensive side of the ball, they've talked about all year not having them. And to have that play, I think you saw the offense. They capitalized off that interception they got a couple plays later, and that was really the nail in the coffin. The offense's ability. We saw the team really overcome a lot of issues throughout the year. The inability to go into the locker room with momentum. We saw that. They scored that touchdown, and they went into the locker room with serious momentum. So I really don't know how that game could have gone any better for FAU. Obviously, the second half, you would have liked them to put the foot on the gas a little bit more. I don't think they had the run game to really ice it. But I mean, they did what they did. I mean, we'll get to it, I'm sure. But with Zach Gibson coming in, that's incredible. And then I'm still getting a touchdown. So they finished the job. That was all that mattered.
You mentioned the run game and you mentioned Zach Gibson, but I want to just overall, because there's no use in going in depth into the Tulsa game. We're now several days removed from it. But what was your most positive takeaway from the game on Saturday?
I would say the team's ability to over fourth down that last drive. Well, not that last drive. Their last scoring drive. I look at that, right, and there was so many different positives in that drive. I'd say that drive to me is their biggest positive. Number one, right away to start that drive, they get a gain of 27 on the ground from Caden Shields-Dutton. That's huge. And then a couple plays later, the play that Velkamp unfortunately took a fall on his shoulder on, the pitch on 3rd and 7, They got 6 yards on a KSD option play there. And
Yeah.
in weeks past, that would have been a 4th down and 7 upcoming. For them to be able to convert that to a 4th and 1, they still went flea flicker, which, that's Zach Kittley for you right there. And no smash mouth. We're going to drop it over the air. And to their credit, it worked. And I think that's what you set up all game for, and that drive in its own for them to get run game, for them to get into a short yardage situation. And then on top of that, to have your backup quarterback to go in there and execute. You can talk all you want about Caden Veltkamp's 3 touchdown game, the 3 interceptions. But if Zach Gibson doesn't come in and go 2 of 2 for 39 yards and a touchdown, they are not winning. I don't know if they win that game. Tulsa would have gotten the ball back near midfield. Their offense was humming. Who knows what would have happened? But for them to have the team collective wherewithal to not skip a beat on a 4th down and 1 play, which to some may look kind of meh at the end of the game, but that was a crucial play. And for them to be able to execute that is a really, really positive reflection of the coaching, to have your backup quarterback to be able to go in there. So all of the above, execution on that drive, run game, and just overall wherewithal of the team. That was really high.
Credit to Zach Kittley, because he makes some decisions sometimes, and I think he has throughout the course of the year, that are easy to, in retrospect, if they didn't work, it would be, wow, that was really aggressive from Zach Kittley. Man, he just gets after it. It can it can go from wow, that was awesome, to what is he thinking, based on the result. Like, very, very, very easily could do that. And running the flea flicker with Zach Gibson on 4th and 1, that is one of those decisions. That is one of those calls. That was really, really gutsy. And Jay-Sean Platt did some work on the back end of that to bring that in. There were 2 defenders in the vicinity, and Jay-Sean Platt just went flat out and won that football. I know that there are a number of players you can look at and say they've been really positive. I am really bullish on him because he's made an ascension. There is nobody on this roster that I think has made a bigger leap this year than Jay-Sean Platt. It's partly because we saw him here last year really not be much of a factor, and then he sort of head-scratchingly, at the time, redshirts. And I think that there was really, for anybody who's around FAU football, the thought when someone does that so early in the year, makes that decision like Jay-Sean Platt did, you think to yourself, he's gone, right? Like, it was what, after the 2nd week of the season, right? And that's when Jay-Sean Platt ended up going into we thought he was going to the transfer portal. He redshirted, but it's easy to say, yeah, he's gone. See ya. There's no doubt he's going to the portal, but he actually stayed. And with a new head coach, he stayed, and he has been so good and so consistent and so explosive. Like, that room, Asad Wasim has been a revelation, obviously. We knew what Easton Messer was going to be. Like, what he's been is what Zach Kittley told us he was going to be. Maybe not most receptions in the country, but certainly was going to be a total game changer. But Jay-Sean Platt, more than anyone on this roster, has been the most low of what I thought the roster was at the beginning of the year. He does not just one, but 2 or 3 things every game where you say, God, am I glad he's in an FAU uniform, because he's just that good now.
Yeah, Jay-Sean Platt, shout out to him. He came this season really out of nowhere. Obviously, he was on the team last year, but his success is something in his career hasn't seen since he was at Venice High School. And so, that's really a spectacular job of development by both staffs, really, last year and this year, because that's exactly what Tom Herman said when he left, or when Jay-Sean went in the portal, was he wants to work on his skills. And at the time, like you said, I didn't know if that was save face from, not wanting to lose a player, or the truth.
It's usually not positive. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, and it ended up being the truth, and that is exactly what Jay-Sean did in his red shirt time. Is he's improved his skills across the board. We saw that first game against Maryland we saw him really make an impact as a returner, and since then it's been as a receiver as well as a returner as well. I think his speed has started to really pop. Excuse me, in this offense. So I think Jay Sean coming out and really taking over an outside receiver role has kind of helped this offense flourish, because I don't know, if they've gotten any at all what they've expected out of two of the outside guys they brought in J.R. Wilson and Quincy Brown. So that's Jay Sean taking over that outside role is definitely kind of helped. And then you still have guys behind him as well. Brandon Hope started making some
How
plays
about
week by
that?
week
Yeah.
as well. So that's a really positive sign right there. You've got four receivers who they're comfortable with playing at any time. So that's ideal.
It is, and I believe I've said this on here before. I'm old now. I don't remember what I say from an episode to episode basis. But this is, and I know we have a lot of former FAU players that watch this, and so I don't mean to offend anybody or disrespect anybody from the olden years. I'm sure that'll help of FAU football. But this is the deepest, most talented receiver room I have ever seen at Florida Atlantic, and I've been calling these games since 2009. There have been good receivers, there have been productive receivers, but as a conglomerate, as a collection, as an entire room, this is the best group of wide receivers that this program has ever enjoyed, which is going to make it doubly difficult to retain this group going into next year. And that's not lost on Zach Kitley. That's not lost on anybody on that coaching staff. It is very unlikely that this group, the way it's currently constituted, is coming back in 2026. I'm not trying to rain on the FAU football parade, but this is just sort of the reality of how things take place. I'd be BSing you if I said, oh, rainbows, puppies, Jay Sean Platt, Assad Wasim, Easton Messer, Dom Henry. Like, that's just not, I'm lying to you if I tell you that I think that's actually going to happen. But it's just so potent. If there's that's what makes the lack of a running game this year hurt that much more. Because if defenses had to account at all for anything that FAU was doing on the ground, just think of the seasons. They've already had good years, but just think of the seasons those receivers could have had, the numbers that they can put up. And yeah, the season's not over, but boy, like, this passing game is everything we thought it would be. If there was a run game to help defenses alter their view a little bit and change their approach, it would be that much more. Just think about that. We're probably talking East Carolina, USF levels, North Texas levels of offensive production.
Yeah, and I think last week was kind of the run game really starting to get going. I don't think they had the volume to really go
No,
super
there wasn't.
monstrous on the ground, but that they were able to generate some solid chunks there when they needed it. It wasn't consistent, and I think that's the goal they really need to keep trying to get, is consistent yards on the ground. But I think last week having that ability to go get 27 yards on a first down carry to spark a drive, or 6 yards on a 3rd and 7 to set up a 4th and 1, those are the type of runs they've been desperately needing. And I think we saw them use the run to set up a big pass play like the flea flicker. I mean, that opened that up. They would not. I can tell you 100%, if it was anything other than 4th and 2 or shorter, they would not have ran a flea flicker. That's just the design of the play. That's what it's for, short yardage. So that's an example right there of the run game being able to set up the pass game. And the last couple of weeks here this season are definitely difficult, but they're this week showed me they're constantly improving, constantly making changes. And like you said, if they had that run game all season, they would put up some really insane numbers. But if that run game gets going here down the stretch, can really help against 3 teams that are going to be difficult. But if you get a flourishing FAU offense in those games, anything's possible.
Yeah, there just wasn't a ton of, like you said, not a ton of volume, not a ton of commitment to it after the first quarter. And I thought that there was a big focus on it in the first quarter, and then things just sort of tapered off from there. And I I I don't want to like pile on the run game because again, there are very capable backs, and I think that the offensive line is capable, but for reasons that are past my level of football IQ. And I know that when someone like Zach Kittley has tried to tweak over and over and over again, I think I feel better not trying to give deep dive and try and go X's and O's, because Zach Kittley has tried to X's and O's actually figure out how to get more out of the run game. But I can't help but thinking week after week, what if this team was able to churn out 150, just that, 150 yards per game on the ground? What if FAU was able to get the same production out of the ground game it got last year, but with this passing game? And we're probably talking about a much different situation than FAU is in, having to win 2 of the final 3. It's going to end up being one of the great mysteries, no matter how this season turns out. The post-mortem and why the run game couldn't get going is going to be one of the more fascinating discussions, and probably, I would think, the aspect that Zach Kittley is going to dig deeper on than maybe anything is, why couldn't we get that going? Better late than never if they can establish this against Tulane and against UConn and against East Carolina. But man, this year probably takes a lot more different view if you had that run game. And it's what's so frustrating, because we know it's capable. And not having Xavier Terrell for the last, 5-6 games, that definitely hasn't helped the situation. But man, you've gotten so much passing production when it could be 10 times that if you were able to churn out 150, 160 rushing yards a game.
Yeah. I think what helped last week definitely also is putting Alex Akovich, getting him back at right guard. I think he's a big force there, helps open up holes alongside Daughtry. I think those two guys move in unison really well on the offensive line, and I think that was definitely part of the spark we saw last week. Now, we'll see how that translates into next week. Even with Alex on the line at times, the run game could have been better. He said that after the game. But he also said, Zach Kittley told the line, reporters are always asking him, why can't we run the ball? And so he kind of put he said the line put it on themselves to figure it out. At the end of the day, it's just block and then push. That's kind of, he definitely said like that's a focus for this line, and they're going to figure it out here down the stretch the best they can. So getting Alex back is definitely a big part of some success they had last week. Same thing as you mentioned with Terrell. If they can get him back, that'll be another key to the puzzle. I don't know if he'll be back this week. I'm not sure. He's been questionable. I think he was listed as out last week. I don't remember off the top of my head, but whatever it was, they need to try. If there's any chance, they got to try to have him come back as quick as possible. But as having Alex back there, that opened up something last week, and maybe next week that'll continue to improve. We'll see. They're doing the best they can. We talked about before on this podcast, there's no reinforcements in that running back room coming.Alex was probably the last kind of reinforcement for the run game as a whole until Terrell comes back. So we'll see what they can do with what they got.
I thought that at least in pass protection, the kicking Scarlett Jean out to right tackle, and then Mauricio Hines and Faye Cable and Atkavage left to right on the line at the guard spot and at the center spot. I think at least in keeping Nonar at left tackle, I think at least early returns would be, we probably see that front 5 at Tulane. I don't see any reason why they would go back to what they've had for the better part of the year. But it definitely feels like at least protecting whichever quarterback is going to play for Florida Atlantic, that Nonar, Hines, Faye Cable, Atkavage, Jean front 5, there's no reason to deviate from that, I would think, barring injury.
No, yeah, and you caught me there. Yes, the adjustments outside of Akovich on that line definitely showed as well. I think Mauricio has been improving throughout the season. Early on in the year, that was before the season even started. That was their most. I think Kittley had him as whether it's the most improved player or somebody he's been highlighting. He was a figure there towards the end of the training camp that Kitley highlighted. So now he's kind of getting that run, and it's been successful. I think he gives them a versatile option on the line. He's played tackle, he's played guard, so he can kind of move pretty well for a lineman. And I think the pieces all aligned to work really well against Tulsa. Now Tulsa's front seven probably is trending towards the bottom of the American Conference, so I wouldn't say that was the biggest test. I think Tulane will definitely test them a little more this week, but definitely a good first showing. And the test like Tulane is what you come and play football for. If FAU's line can step up and really protect Veltkamp and create some holes in the run game, that would go a long way in FAU trying to pull off an upset on the road.
Yeah, Tulane has the ninth best overall defense in the league, sixth best scoring defense, the 12th best passing defense. And I bring that up, though, because USF had the worst pass defense in the conference, and FAU really struggled to throw the ball because they could not establish the run against South Florida. Navy came in with the 12th best passing offense at the time, and FAU had its problems moving the football late in the second quarter throughout the entire third quarter as FAU stayed within 8 minute after minute after minute after minute that rolled by. I did the math. That was 18 straight minutes in the game that FAU trailed by only 8 at Navy, but again, could not generate the offense to continue to chip into that. So just because Tulane struggles defending the pass, I don't think that means FAU fans should automatically think, well, there's our in. It's your in if you can finally, for the first time this year, really grind out a run game. And listen, I don't know. And we've been hoping for it. It hasn't happened. But if this is the week you do it, then you could potentially pull off an upset. Tulane has not been rock solid at home this year. Tulane has had a couple of near shocking knockoffs there in the Big Easy this year. So is it impossible? No. Is it going to take a great effort? Absolutely. Speaking of New Orleans and Tulane, Chris Bartels, former FAU defensive captain, conference champion 2007, my former broadcast partner with FAU. He is making his triumphant return to the broadcast booth this week to one of his favorite cities. Chris Newbold had a prior arrangement that he needed to tend to this weekend, so he's going to be replaced in the booth by former FAU football radio analyst Chris Bartels, who will come back to your ears on Saturday afternoon. How about that? Everything full circle now.
They're letting him out of the dungeon of Rice. I tweeted that out. They had him locked away there at Rice Stadium since 2023. So glad Chris is getting out of there. That's big. Definitely tune into the radio call, his first game out of the pen. So that'll be good. Make sure to listen to that one, folks.
Love it. Christian says, "What's up, fellas?" Yeah, hey, we're doing it at a little bit different time. We usually do this Sundays, but work sucks. Don't pay attention to work. It's a Tuesday. Anything that you put off to watch us here and contribute to the chat. And again, the chat is live. Throw in there. Like, forget your employment. Who cares? If you're an FAU fan, this is your priority right now. Aaron in the chat. If we as a fan base want to see and build upon what we've seen this season offensively and defensively and improve on it, hopefully retain key pieces, we need to step up donating to the FAU Competitive Excellence Fund, FAU NIL Marketplace. Yeah, that's accurate. It's just, listen, you push it as hard as you can. You see what you can get out of it. And I will say, though, like it, especially with the constant power conference decision making and the lack of including the group of five in any reasonable measure in the college football playoff. Forget NIL for a second. It is an immediate disadvantage at the group of five level, because they're not allowed in any substantive way to play for a national championship or to be in the college football playoff. And so it just, we can talk about NIL till we're blue in the face, okay? And we can talk about uh, outside money coming in to help retain rosters until we're passed out and drooling on the table. But there is also a competitive element to all of this. And that's not going to be fixed anytime soon or ever, which is why I've said repeatedly, and I've gotten some pushback on it. And I don't think it's the majority opinion, but I would be all for, yes, the college football playoff keeps its, and it's not a group of 5 representative. It is the highest ranked, it's the highest ranked 5th conference champion that gets in to the automatic bid to the college football playoff. Usually that's going to be a group of 5 since there's only 4 power conferences, okay? But it's not automatic. So for me, you have that one in, but enough of the reward being spending 4 days in Frisco for a bowl game. Okay. Like, no offense to the fine people of Frisco, Texas. No offense to the people in Myrtle Beach. No offense to the people in, I don't know, in Albuquerque and the New Mexico Bowl. No offense to them, but that's not much of a reward for a football team to go through an entire year and then he gets shipped off to Frisco, Texas. And that's supposed to be the way you're honored. I want to set up a separate group of 5 bracket. And you don't mean to tell me that ESPN wouldn't pay big money to televise a group of 5 college football playoff? You couldn't get a reasonable TV deal out of that. And you extrapolate that money throughout the pyramid of the group of 5 college football playoff. Like, I think that's the path because I want to play for a trophy. And that's going to help retain these players if there actually is a bracket style trophy to play for at the end of the year instead of these guys getting to the end of the season and it's like, screw it. Like, what? I don't care about going to Annapolis for a bowl game. I think that's ultimately the fix. But what do I know? I'm just a guy.
I don't know. Ken,
I know you're a detractor of this.
You're well. I mean, you would probably know more about it. You're a co-worker of the mouse, co-worker of Mickey Mouse.
That's right. I get a Disney paycheck. Correct.
So I mean, you may the TV deal side of things. For me, it just seems like there's no way that it would be equal, but it's maybe. I mean, compared to what the team.
I mean, it wouldn't be equal, but I think it would be enough. There's enough of an allure because people love football and people love college football. There's enough of an allure where ESPN would come to a pretty generous agreement that, hey, we want the rights to this. I mean, I do think you could get in a bidding war between Fox and their family of networks and ESPN and their family of networks, and maybe even CBS gets involved in it, or it's a collection of all 3 and enough to cobble together money where the group of 5 say, oh, this is worth it. Getting into the playoff, that would generate more than enough money for us to feel comfortable revamping the postseason into that. So yeah, we'll send our 1 representative to the college football playoff and they can benefit off the windfall of that. But then everybody else gets a little bit of a piece with their own bracket. So as I'm just spitballing here because I have group of 5 football bias and I'm sick and damn tired of the entire thing being rigged against the group of 5. And it drives me crazy. I want to play the following for you. And Robbie, I then want to get your reaction to this. But Zach Kittley, we're recording this on Tuesday. Zach Kittley earlier today talked about the injury to Caden Veldkamp that we saw, the shoulder problem that knocked him out of the game and brought in Zach Gibson, whose first throw was a 4th and 1 flea flicker completion. And then his second throw was the 3rd touchdown reception of the day to Easton Messer. Not bad coming off the bench if you're Zach Gibson. After the game, Caden Veldkamp said, oh, yeah, I've been battling this for most of the season, the shoulder issue. And, you don't feel it when you get shot up with Toradol. So I mean, hey, credit to Caden Veldkamp. That's being as transparent as possible. Oh yeah, I'm getting loaded up on Toradol and then I'm letting it fly with this right arm. So at first I read it, I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like, wait, maybe there's a business making opportunity, an endorsement for Toradol. I don't even know what pharmaceutical company would benefit from that, but hey, how about there's an NIL opportunity?
I don't know if it's the one. FAU execs and
Yeah,
students
right.
would want.
It's unconventional. Yeah, maybe not the one that you would maybe pine for, but I digress. But here's Zach Kitley talking about his quarterback's health situation, giving a little bit of a background to it today.
He's the shoulder injury kind of hit him against Memphis, and so since then we've been kind of battling this a little bit, and he's been. I guess I would say it. He hasn't been 100% every day since then, but he's been able to practice a little bit here and there, and he's done a good job. And this is just a little setback for him again. Kind of it feels basically like it did after he got injured at Memphis, same type of deal. And we came back after Memphis. He played a really good game against Rice, so I'm hoping a lot of the same this Saturday.
And obviously, I think you said earlier, but if you can't go, we would see Gibson on the start.
Yeah. For some crazy reason, Tim can't play. It'll be Zach Gibson will get the start, and Jordan Magwood would be his backup.
So it doesn't sound like there's much concern for Caden Veldkamp, but it also wasn't a 100%. Caden Veldkamp is fine, and he's going to play. So there's at least that has to be pondered going into Tulane, but also there is that Tulane has to ponder. And if Caden Veldkamp can't go, there are worse backup quarterback options than his words, not mine, the old man himself, Zach Gibson, to turn to, who has a plethora of college football experience. But here we go with our first little bit of quarterback health drama in 2025.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But I'll have to consult FAU alumni. I believe Dr. Jesse Morse. I believe he's an FAU alumni.
I believe so.
I'll have to go consult the fantasy football doctor himself. But I think he'll play. And even what I really think this is. Kitley hasn't had a chance to do this all season. Every coach
gamesmanship.
Every coach does it. I mean, we did it. They did it last year, and I'm pretty sure all of us knew Fancher was going to start. And I think they dragged that out until like Tuesday before Michigan State last year. So I think this is the first time, and even for this year, they dragged out the quarterback battle into camp a little bit. But this is the first time since then where they can say, yeah, maybe you'll see Zach Gibson. Go watch all of his film from the last 6 years in 6 different schools he went to. Enjoy that, focus on that, and maybe you'll miss something here or there with Caden Veldkamp. So, I think he'll play, and I think this is a chance for them to kind of throw Tulane off a little bit. But like you said, if there's something that happens that he doesn't play, I'm into Zach as starting quarterback. It's not ideal at all. Scary. That'll make it a really good story if he were to come in and win that game. But I don't think it'll get there. I think Caden plays.
Yeah. Speaking of the gamesmanship part of it, Tulsa on their depth chart still has at the top of their X receiver slot on their depth chart a wideout who has been out for the season since week 4. So
Braylon
just
Presley?
yeah. So no, not Presley. I cannot remember what his name, but
yeah, no, it's all good. I thought it was him, but anyway.
No, I think Presley actually saw a snap or two against FAU, but they have a receiver there that hasn't played in since week 4, and he's out for the season. So just to tell you like how some depth charts are handled and how transparent some teams are. Tulsa not the most transparent, and so there is a even if it's a small, there's an injury question, and so this is your chance to maybe play a little bit of gamesmanship there. The bottom line is FAU needs to win 2 games out of the final 3 to be bowl eligible. This on its face is the toughest one. UConn's going to be difficult because they have already beaten Duke. They're a good team. They're bowl eligible again. And then there is East Carolina to close out the season, who has just as strong a passing attack as FAU does. So that's what's going to have to be navigated through. That's going to be the big hurdle here, or hurdles for Florida Atlantic to try and get to bowl eligibility. Are the odds against them? Probably. Are the percentages against them? Probably. But I wanted to show something real quick before we wrap this up. This is the group of 5 adjusted EPA. Okay. The adjusted EPA, let me explain to you real quick what this is. This is expected points added. It's an advanced statistic. It measures how much a play increases or decreases a team's likelihood of scoring, and you can calculate it both offensively and defensively. If you're not looking at the chart, this is post podcast edition. And again, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I'll try and convey this as best I can. So in this EPA, there is the good defense quadrant in the upper left. There is the bad defense quadrant in the lower left. There is the bad offense quadrant that you find on the lower right, and the good offense quadrant that you find on the other side. And Florida Atlantic is inside the good offense, good defense quadrant. I found that to be a little bit surprising based on what we focused on throughout times this season, Robbie. But FAU sits right in the vicinity of Marshall and in the same vicinity as Ohio. Army is in this general direction. But it also shows me if FAU by the metrics has both displayed good offense and good defense, but they've done it sort of a border way on both. FAU is probably, this was my takeaway, a run game away from being at the level of a Tulane, who sits to the right of FAU in the good offense, trending in the right direction, at least in the vicinity of North Texas in that spot. And the good defense, you're going up a bit more in the Boise State range, into the Old Dominion range, if you could force turnover in any appreciable amount this year. And it feels to me that those are the two aspects that have kept FAU from really realizing its full potential. And I think it's laid out there in the estimated points graph that we were able to conjure up.
You know, the EPAs are always interesting to look
at.
And
it's not like I want to, just before you go on, Robbie, sorry to interrupt. The EPA is not like set in stone. This is how it is. This is the Bible of football. But I think it does at least give a casual insight into the fact that a team is competitive and a team might be better than the record suggests. And I think this suggests FAU is better than its record.
Yeah. I think the schedule makers did FAU an unfortunate hand by giving them FIU early and UConn late. I think if they had FIU at this point in the season, I think looking at the EPA, you could probably say that FAU would perform better. A lot of those early season mistakes have kind of gone out the window, but you know, those early season mistakes definitely hurt them, and it put them in a little bit of a precarious situation here down the stretch to make a bowl game. But this chart definitely does a good job of reflecting, you know, there's definitely been positives that last year weren't here. I think the week by week improvement we've seen in various areas. They went from having no pass rush to a solid pass rush. They went from having no run defense to a formidable run defense at times. They went from forcing literally 0 interceptions to having 2 in the same game. So week by week, they're improving in across the board. And I think, you know, if they can kind of find a way to make that consistent down the stretch, some magic could happen here. You know, things could have been a little easier if they had handled business early in the season. But, you know, a week 2 loss to FIU when you're still battling things and figuring things out is kind of something that happens when you have a first-year head coach. What you want to see is them build from that, which they have, and eradicate that from existence next year, which hopefully they will. So, you know, they've built week by week. They've got a chance to really finish here in a strong way. It's not going to be easy, but as the statistics show, they've got the potential for it. We'll see if they can execute.
Yeah. It's It's a spot where that FIU game unfortunately looms large, but think about it. The American, last week it was a 5-way race for the American championship. Memphis loses, so they fall off. But going into last weekend, FAU had played the vast majority of the 5 teams who are competing for the conference championship. Now it's down to 4, and one of those teams, FAU plays next week. One of those teams is Navy, who FAU played 3 weeks ago. And another one of those teams is USF, who FAU had played the week before. And Navy and USF were on the road. And then, FAU has to go on the road to Tulane as well. So the only team that FAU is missing in that entire equation is North Texas. So that is, the schedule makers too didn't do FAU any favors when it came to the conference slate either. I don't want to lean on that as an excuse, but that sucks. that really, really, really sucks. Robbie, thank you as always for adjusting schedule, and we will talk to you for sure next Sunday for a proper day after Tulane game. Okay.
Indeed, safe travels to the Big Easy, and I'll be listening. Happy to have Chris back on the color analyst duties. That's big. That's big. Hopefully, it leads to some good luck.
My man, appreciate you.
Yep.
Robbie Lastella, New Era Preps. Before we wrap up the pod here, I want to be as clear as possible, and there might be people at FAU who see this or hear this and think I'm overstepping bounds, but I promise this is coming from a potentially productive place. I like to think that I have developed enough equity with the school and athletics and with the fan base in order to say what I'm about to say without there being pearl clutching and hand wringing and teeth gnashing about it. But I thought that homecoming crowd against Tulane was the worst I've ever seen in 17 years of calling FAU football. I mean, it was really wildly, vastly disappointing. The student turnout especially. And I know that it's easy to call out students and why don't they get there on time? Why don't they stay past halftime? I always try to avoid that because I was a college student once and I understand what goes into it. But it was just like no-show stuff. And I thought there would be a better turnout with a team that still very much alive for bowl eligibility. I just thought that it sucked. Like that homecoming turnout sucked. So the reason I bring that up is that no matter what happens this weekend, the objective is the same. Florida Atlantic is going to have to pick up. If they beat Tulane, and again, it's going to be very difficult, FAU is going to need one of those home games to get bowl eligible. If FAU doesn't win this weekend, which again, this game's very difficult, you're going to need both games to become bowl eligible against 2 good teams that are coming into Boca Raton. If you can't get yourself up and motivated to be in the stands and to try and push this team to get to a spot that it hasn't been since 2019, and in your own small way, make a difference for what is a very affordable ticket. If you can't bring yourself to go and support that, then you need to really question your fandom or your allegiance. Like, that's just, if you have a problem with what I'm saying, I'm available. You know how to get a hold of me. I'm around. I've never been shy about shaking hands and talking with the fans. If you think what I'm saying is out of line, you can address me with it. But bottom line, as clear as I can be, get your ass to Boca. UConn game, East Carolina game. No matter how Saturday turns out with Tulane, get your ass into a seat. Straight up, flat out. There's no excuse not to, unless you have something pre-planned. I understand people are busy. We're getting into a holiday time of year. It's closing in on Thanksgiving. But this is what you follow a team for. This is what you're a fan of a team for, is for moments like this, where it's a critical time of the season. Your team has a proverbial back against the wall, but there is still hope that you can hit an ultimate goal, which this season was 6 wins. No matter how Tulane transpires, that goal, the 6 wins, is going to be within grasp, within reach. But you know what's not going to help? Playing in front of a smattering of applause. And that's what the homecoming turnout was. Like that was discouraging because it shouldn't be that way. And it definitely shouldn't be that way with FAU basically playing 2 playoff games the rest of the year. UConn, East Carolina. UConn first, East Carolina second. UConn non-conference, East Carolina to close out the American Conference slate. Just make the effort. Show that you are going to be a part of this. And I get caught up in this because I see so much passion for the program. And I know this isn't the biggest fan base, but there is a lot of desire within this small fan base. It carries an awful long way. But there is sometimes some really quick checkout that takes place that is maddening. And so the season's not over. The season has a chance to be special still. But in order to maximize that potential, the fans need to be there. And I don't want the homecoming turnout to be a harbinger of what the final 2 home games are going to be, because that was just poor and not good enough and a disappointing reflection. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. And I hope there's not a ton of blowback on it. But if you, as a fan, have an issue with it, I'm right here. Find me at the Coach's Show. Find me on game day. Find me at basketball next Monday. But I thought it needed to be said because I haven't seen it or heard it said anywhere else. So I think I've got enough prestige within all the different aspects of this to be able to be as frank as possible as I can be, and not frank for it. So that'll do it for the Florida Atlantic Voice. Thank you for making some time live on your Tuesday afternoon during your workday. This will be in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, whether it is some Lithuanian server where you have your podcast fed to you. I don't know, but it is there. I promise you, it is there. The black market podcast industry also loves the Florida Atlantic Voice, presented by Robes Law Group, personal injury lawyers, presenting partner of the Florida Atlantic Voice, ROBES, Robes Law Group, robeslawgroup.com. Don't forget to download the Robes Shield app. If you're in an accident, it has all the information you need. It's not just, call the personal injury lawyers, but it has a specific component to the app where you in real time can store your recollections of the incident. You can have photos and upload them there. You can make sure that right after it happens, when you are in the best position to clearly recall everything, you can jot it down so you're not having to guess after the fact. Your nerves are frayed. You're definitely in an adrenaline rush situation. So you want something where you can immediately put all of that stuff down, because once you start coming down from that, that is where your memory starts to fail you a little bit, or you can't quite remember what took place as quickly as your recall would be right after something happened. So use the Robes Shield, the Robes app. It is certainly worth it. It doesn't mean that you're tied into anything post-accident, but obviously Robes is the best personal injury lawyer situation you're going to find yourself, but also this is useful for the insurance company, so on and so on and so on. So download the Robes Shield, Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. We'll talk to you Thursday, 3 p.m. for the live edition where we talk FAU basketball. Damon Arnett is going to hang out with me for that. That will also be in podcast form. But be on the lookout for this on your phone, on your tablet, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast. It'll just come right to your phone or tablet. And if you don't have it, subscription to it, I don't know why, but you can search Spotify, Apple, your podcast deliverer, and it'll be there for you. Thanks to Robbie Lastella, New Era Preps. I'm Ken LaVicka. This has been the Florida Atlantic Voice presented by Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Bye-bye.